Good evening.
We'll start, and I guess we'll wait and see if Jerry joins us. Let me pull up the agenda. 6:30. We have board member updates. Does anybody have any updates from last week?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I wanted to comment that the building commissioner has time on the select board agenda next week to talk about centralizing the related departments under one roof. And so it makes sense, and it would possibly even create some cost savings. So how can we help to support that Maren would be part of that overall department? What is there anything that we need to do to show the support that the planning board might want to provide to that effort?
Thanks for the question. Yes, if the planning board would, send a letter or email town administrator, he could, with the board support, with the planning board support of that initiative, that would be helpful.
So do you want me to call Anthony? Do you want to? You don't want to write a letter to support yourself going over there? No, it probably doesn't work. You want me to do it that way, or do we want to send something over formally?
I think something formally so that way everyone can see it, and a phone call would be nice. That personal touch.
I will call him and I will follow up with an email. How's that? Will that work?
That works great.
Unless you want to do it.
You are the chair, and so you have that prerogative. I don't know if Delisa or Jeff had any comment on this, but I think it would be a good idea.
Maren, I'm going to leave it to you. Do you think it's a good idea?
Yes, I do. I'm particularly excited about the opportunity to get an office manager, somebody that can do the bills and the payroll and those purely administrative tasks that take time. Having already been able to give minutes and filing and things like that to Lucia, I can certainly see the benefit of being able to offload other of the administrative tasks.
So just to give you a history of this, Jeff, 5 years ago, maybe 6, when Ed was, I think he was chairman one year, him and Peter Scott were asked by Keith Bergman at the time to try to start consolidating the different departments. And so back then we rolled the planning board into the select board so that Maren actually answered to Keith and his administrative assistant. So that's how it started. Now the talk is to finalize and formalize getting all the other boards in there, the Board of Health, the Building Department, the
Conservation Commission.
Conservation, yeah. So this is, I guess, as we go, the next step. So I will send Anthony, I will call Anthony, I will send him an email that we would very much like to support this action, and we'll go from there. How's that? Will that work, Anthony?
Sounds good, Mark. Sounds good.
I'll send you an email to follow up with it.
Well, thank you. Considering you don't answer your phone when I call you, that'll be nice.
When did you call me? You haven't called me.
I called you last week or something. There's got to be a missed call. I'm going to check. There's got to be a call log somewhere.
All right. Well,
that's all right. I don't take it personally, Mark.
Anytime you call me, Anthony, Anthony, did you get the money yet?
We got 600,000. Yes.
Okay. Was that what you were calling to thank me that I came through with the money?
No, but thank you. Yes. Anyways, right.
No, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, I didn't get a call. I would call you back, but I will follow up with an email that for Monday night's meeting that we totally support this agenda. Okay. Anna, you happy now?
Thank you for doing that, and yes, great.
Any other board updates? Well, Anna and I have an update. We were on the phone call the other day with Northern Bank about their next step is to trying to develop their parcel, and we saw a rendition of what their first building is going to look like on the triangular piece, and we've suggested that they come for the full planning board at their earliest convenience. And it sounds like they're moving forward, and can't wait for you guys to see what the bank itself is going to look like. I think it's very nice, and it's going to make that corner look really, really sharp going into the center of town. So they should be before us in probably April. Right, Maren? I don't think they can make March.
Yeah, that's what it looks like they're shooting for now.
Okay. So that's all the update I have. Anybody else have any member updates? Nobody? Delisa? No, everything's good in Colorado? Jeff?
Oh, all set.
Okay, good. Anything from anybody in the audience anybody get their hands raised? They want to yell at us about something?
Nobody with their hands raised at the moment.
That's good. All right. So minutes. How are we doing with minutes? January 21st, January 28th, and February 4th.
Let's see, I was able to get you the January 21 and January 28 minutes.
Anybody read them?
I did. Nothing jumped out at me.
Nothing. Anna?
It looked good to me. Thank you.
Delisa? Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you were chewing. I didn't know you were eating. Jerry, are you okay?
Yeah.
Minutes were good? Good. So I'll entertain a motion from someone to approve the minutes for January 21st and 28th. Someone wants to make that motion.
I still move.
So moved by Jeff.
A second.
Seconded by Delisa. All those in favor? Jerry?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Delisa?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Great. Thank you. Minutes, meeting schedule. Our next
Yep.
schedule.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you tell us when we have to be back on.
Yeah, for March, we have a meeting scheduled for March 4th. And then the second meeting in March, I was hoping to double check whether you're doing the 11th or the 18th. I was kind of heading toward the 18th, but
Okay.
does that work?
Anybody have any issues with the 4th and the 18th? I don't know. Yeah, Delisa's good. Jeff, you're all right?
Okay.
Sure.
Then
I guess
then
everybody's
in April, the first Thursday of April is the 1st. So just checking if you want to meet April 1 or April 8.
The only thing we're probably going to have is the 40-hour. We'll be fine tuning that for. Can we do it does everyone want to do it the 8th? And since we're going to be meeting on.
Don't think I'm going to be here the 1st. Plus it's April Fool's Day. Do we want to have a meeting on April Fool's Day?
Let's do the 8th. Let's give ourselves a couple of weeks off. I'm sure we'll end up stuffing something in there anyway, but
Yeah, I would imagine there will be a second meeting in April sometime, but
let's just shoot for the 8th then.
thank you.
Everyone good with that? Okay, so now we're back on to, let's start with, while we have Vera, I can't say your name. I'm sorry. I butcher it every time I try.
No worries, it's hard. It's Ivrea, like Adam and Eve's.
Ivriela. Okay, gonna kind of walk us through the marijuana delivery amendment bylaw we're trying to wrestle with.
For sure. So I circulated 2 drafts for the board to consider. And we can go through them. And Mark, just stop me if you want to ask questions. So the first one is a complete prohibition on delivery licensees, delivery endorsements, and delivery agreements within town. So while this bylaw does not prohibit home delivery from an establishment located outside of Littleton, no delivery licensee could set up shop in Littleton.
Okay, so let's stop there. Let's see if the board wants to entertain that idea. If we want to have not allow any retail delivery in the town of Littleton from the town of Littleton.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
uh,
I don't want a prohibition.
okay. Jeff, what do you think?
I think my feeling from last meeting was that I don't mind our retail establishments having a delivery license. And Ivrea, I don't know what this is overwhelming having 5 different categories but that does not bother me.
Okay.
But having someone licensed in town to what you call white label I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mark, do I need, Maren, do I need to recuse myself? Do you want to shut me off since this is cannabis related or not?
What? I don't think, I wasn't going to ask your opinion on it, but I
Okay,
didn't think we had a problem with having you listen in on it.
okay, all right.
Is that okay? Abiy?
Yeah. Delisa, it's up to you if you want to participate or not. From the limited understanding I do have of your involvement, you're not hosting a delivery licensee in your establishment. So I think that you don't have a financial interest in this matter, but if you want to recuse yourself because of your connection.
No,
it's
I'll
fine
just
to do
listen,
so.
but I won't comment.
Well,
Okay.
she might have a financial interest because the talk among the board is if we are going to approve it, it's probably going to be to the 2 retail establishments that we're going to set up in town. I kind of agree with Jerry, and I haven't got to Anna yet, but I'll pipe in. I think if we're going to allow it, that we should make sure that the establishments that we have in town have first shot at allowing for in-home delivery and things like that. So I'm personally in favor of, if you're going to do it, limit it to up to 2, and the 2 have to be, unless they assign it to someone else, have to be the retail establishments that are currently going to be approved in town.
So this is where it gets a little bit confusing. So a retail establishment right now is not permitted under the regulatory scheme to hold a delivery endorsement. So they can't deliver their own product. So the only way that a marijuana retailer can deliver their product is via a marijuana courier. So they would need to enter into an agreement with another entity to deliver their products.
Okay.
So
and the courier is not allowed to deliver their own product. They have to deliver it from someone else.
correct. So the marijuana courier, for ease, think of like an Uber. So they would not sell their own marijuana. They would just facilitate delivering it to an individual's home.
Can the courier be limited to serving the retail establishments in town, or can they do any establishment?
So the question that you have is, if a delivery licensee seeks to open up and shop, can we restrict where they are permitted to obtain their marijuana that they are delivering?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. My first thought is no, that we don't have that ability. There is a regulation that specifies where delivery licensees are allowed to deliver. And there's some case law that suggests the Cannabis Control Commission decided to give municipalities a very limited amount of regulatory authority here. And so if there's a regulation on point, we have to defer to that regulation. The area in which the town can regulate delivery licensees would be the hours of delivery.
Anna, I didn't want to cut you off. Did you have a thought on this, whether you want limited, prohibited?
Well, I think from what I understand, prohibitive is really pretty much not possible, because as I understand, Ivrea, what we're faced with is the fact that if we were to say no, it still means that outside delivery vehicles can still come into Littleton, because currently we're a yes community because of the retail. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So if we're going to have people coming in anyway, then it might as well be our own people. And second of all, as I understand it, we cannot ban this completely without then banning retail, and that's just going, the opposite direction of where this whole industry is going. So if that's the case, then we have to figure out what we actually do want that delivery to look like.
So Avita, can we make it so that, even though I know it's illegal, but we don't know where the state's going to end up with this, why can't we allow just the retail establishments to be the licensees and see what the state does to us? If we put the bylaw in that way and wait till they catch up to us, they're going to either turn us down or they're going to let us do it that way, correct?
Right. So what you would be saying in your bylaw is that the only entities that are permitted to hold a delivery license must also hold a marijuana retail license within town.
Yeah.
I think that it is possible that the Attorney General would not approve a bylaw drafted that way. That said, I still think there's an opportunity here. Littleton could go through a host community agreement process similar to what it did previously, where it would value those applicants that have a connection to town. So the select board at its discretion could seek out delivery licensees that are connected with town and value that highly. I know Anthony is also on the meeting tonight. So, I don't think the town is without the ability to have a say in who the licensees are, but I think a restriction as the one you propose, Mark, would be suspect.
If someone wanted to challenge it.
Correct. Well, remember, all bylaws first have to go to the Attorney General. So there's a possibility that her office would disapprove the bylaw or that portion of the bylaw that she believes to be invalid or in violation of the law.
All right, so wait, you're saying that we can't allow, wait a minute. The party that buys the license, if they own a retail shop, is it done at the individual level or the entity level? I guess what I'm saying.
Well, I guess it's generally done at the entity level, and there's caps on how many licenses an individual can have an interest in. So it's a bit more complicated. I don't know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but I think it's about 5.
The same entity could own 2 shingles.
Correct.
They just couldn't do it out of the same location.
No, they could. So Sanctuary, I believe, holds a marijuana processor license, a marijuana cultivator license. So if, for example, they wanted to get a marijuana delivery license, they would have 3 licenses operating out of the same establishment.
Could they?
Yes, I believe they could.
But a retailer cannot?
No, a retailer, so what delivery license would they get? Because they'd want to deliver their own products. So they couldn't get a courier license because that wouldn't accomplish it.
A delivery endorsement.
They could theoretically get a delivery endorsement, except at this point in time, the regulations say that delivery endorsements are only available to micro businesses. Eventually, it is very possible that delivery endorsements will be expanded to retailers, but we're not there yet. And so at this moment, marijuana retailers, practically speaking, will be looking to enter into delivery agreements with marijuana couriers.
All right, so last time we talked, we asked for a grid. Do you got a grid on allowable combinations?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need a grid of allowable combinations between. So you're saying it's if I'm a grower, I can have one, but if I'm a retailer, I can have nothing.
So
how does it all lay out, like in a grid, like 1 to 1 to 1 to 1?
So this is the pros and cons that Jerry had referenced last time.
Right, but if I understand, Jerry, you were asking also for staff or town council to make some recommendations on it, and it's without understanding what it is that you're looking for, that would be impossible for us to do.
I want to know what they, I want to know if you have a grid that says this is the type of establishment and this is the other types of a license they can have, then
So
you have a
we would-
matrix that would tell you what combos are legal.
Mhm.
So if you had a matrix of legal combinations, you could look at that combination list and say, well, what are the pros and cons to that? I mean, my intent, let me just tell you my intent is. My intent is to be able to look at that and say, when we implement this bylaw, what are the possible combinations? And B, are we disadvantaging the local retailer who we just invested a whole bunch of time setting up?
But we are,
I
no
want to make
matter-
sure we're not going to crush them.
Jerry, no matter how we do it, we are disadvantaging the local retailer. That's the point I'm trying to get at, unless they're actively involved in it.
So then
Um,
let's draft a bylaw we know the AG will reject and put a note on there saying, you
Well-
just disadvantaged all this work we did. If that's your intent, go ahead and reject us and we'll refile again.
That's kind of my point. Why don't we be the forerunners on this and say we only
Yeah,
want-
let's stick something we know that they'll reject, because you're
Well, not
basically saying,
necessarily,
hey,
Jack. Maybe they will say, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. If you're gonna go through the vetting of getting retail establishment in town and you want it to succeed, why not give them a fighting chance by allowing them to get everything?
at least that way we go on record with the AG and the AG can bring it back to the legislature and that's good feedback.
So
That's kind of my point.
the flip side to that is a delivery licensee may not want to operate within Littleton because they can only deliver product that is sold at retail in Littleton. They're
And
going to
that-
want to be able to go to Air or to wherever and pick up
Right.
product there as well. And so it's going to be more difficult for Littleton to attract a potential delivery licensee.
Do we
Or-
really?
this
Or
is-
the licenses.
This is all right. This is the analysis I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's analysis. That's an outcome.
Well,
So I mean, that's what I'm talking about. If you're saying that having a retailer have their own delivery license on the current law doesn't advantage them in any way, then we should know that.
I don't understand how it wouldn't advantage.
All of this is sort of just analysis in the hypothetical, right? Like there's applications pending for delivery licensees and we can look sort of to the medical system, but it's not like this is an industry that is developed that I can point to cases and examples.
No, what I'm
But
saying is
from just a,
no, Ivrea, what you just said is analysis. To say that scenario doesn't work because they're going to want to go to outside towns, that would go along with the analysis. That's what I was looking for. So we could look at the list and we can all just say, makes sense, doesn't make sense.
So why is it that they can't go to other towns if other towns can come to Littleton? I don't understand that.
so Mark had suggested that one restriction that we would put in the bylaw is that only establishments that are in Littleton, the delivery licensees would only deliver from retail applicants in Littleton.
No, that doesn't. No. You're saying that's not a state law. You're saying that's our self-imposed.
Right.
restriction.
That's
That's what
us.
Mark was just talking about.
No,
I thought.
I'm saying if you don't let a retail establishment deliver
Yeah,
and compete on equal footing with their competitors, they're going to get crushed.
right. And so what I think the second option that I drafted allows, when the state allows it, would allow retail establishments to obtain a delivery
Delivery license.
endorsement or a delivery license. So the second option says any establishment in these zones could obtain this license. We're not saying which ones.
Yeah, we're saying basically because there's no shingle, it's at the entity level. So a retail owner could buy a license under a different corp, however they want to incorporate. They open up a separate entity, get the license, and operate two separate. Is there a restriction on affiliation?
I'd have to check the regs. I think you can be affiliated provided you have a delivery agreement.
All right. So again, we get all this ironed out that we can do these scenarios, and then we can draft a rational bylaw that advantages our approved establishments so that we don't put them at a competitive disadvantage. That was the whole goal. That was my goal.
And advantages tax revenue.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we capture.
We need them. God knows we need the money. That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I would like you to get to that point as well, but what I don't want to happen is have an AG turn the bylaw down and we are left with nothing, with no framework at all.
Addressing that concern. So
Mhm.
we can have the pro forma, and we can say, well, if we think after we line up this grid and we have some analysis with the scenarios, we could say if we think that's going to work, we vote to go. If we don't think it works, and we think if the way it's currently done, we don't agree with it, we could draft a bylaw with the intent of knowing it's going to get rejected to help us message to the legislature that this isn't working for our establishments. Because we have a vested interest here in ensuring that these businesses that we've approved or are in the process of approving have the best chance of success at a critical time in the industry. If they fail now, they're never coming back. They're just going to get consumed by somebody else.
What I guess I'm not following then is the second option, which is entitled delivery via special permit. It allows all forms of delivery in town. So current retail establishments could obtain, if they wanted, a delivery license to deliver their product when it is permitted at the state level. So what are we, so it sounded earlier.
Or when they can.
So they may be able to do it. This is where it gets really complex. So they may be able to get a delivery license now if they're located in a different site. If they want to co-locate, that's when it becomes more difficult.
But that's their right of first refusal. That's what I'm saying. Like, they could still have right of first refusal on those licenses. They could choose whether or not they want to open up another shop in a different location in town, right?
Right.
So there's no restriction from us. They could still make it work. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah,
we would have a scenario, and we would draft our bylaw to encourage that scenario and allow them to figure it out.
Right. So that's what the second option does, is it allows those uses everywhere in town. What I heard Mark say previously is that you wanted to give some type of preference to your marijuana retailers to also hold a marijuana delivery license.
You said service. What'd you call it? A service license?
A marijuana delivery license?
No, there's three types.
The courier. The courier license.
Yeah, which one could they do? Like, if I was a retail, right, I open up another corp, and I
could do the courier.
I could do the courier. That's the scenario I'm talking about. That's what we want.
And they could theoretically get the other type 2 delivery operator license, but delivery operators can't have a storefront, so they would have to have different corporations, different structures. It'd be
whatever,
more
but
complex.
they could still do it. At that point, it's on the buyer to structure however they want that matches the law. I'm saying
right.
My law wouldn't prohibit them from
So the second option allows for all the forms of delivery. But what it doesn't do, what Mark was talking about earlier, is that it doesn't give preference to delivery licensees that also hold a marijuana retailer license within town.
So we would need to insert language.
But that's the part that I feel would be suspect to challenge. So
what do we have to lose then?
What would they be challenging on? All we'd be saying back to the Attorney General is, and again, this is if the board agrees. All we'd be saying is that we believe the current structure provides an unreasonable disadvantage to established businesses that we have a stake in, because we just got through approving this. We expect revenue, and then we're going to go ahead and approve this bylaw that can, in theory, put these people out of business, and we get no revenue. And so our interest is void simply by approving this bylaw. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
I say we put it in there and let the Attorney General, if they throw it out, then we're left with the rest of the bylaw, which is what we're gonna get anyway. So why don't we just try to put it in there and let them cross it
think
out
they-
if they want to?
If they don't approve partial, right? It's either yay and nay, or would they?
So they have been known to disapprove specific sections of a bylaw. So we would want to very clearly put this in a portion that can be stricken by them so that it doesn't mess up any of the other portion of the bylaw, which I think we could draft. But, you know, I think she'll view this as protectionist to some extent, which I get. We have an invested interest and we've committed a lot of time and resources to these establishments.
But the
I
whole
also want to-
industry is protected. The whole industry is being protected by.
Yeah, I agree.
So
But
No.
I do also want to note that our retail licensees in town are not social equity or empowerment applicants. So they are ineligible for 3 years from obtaining a delivery license, if not more. And so, you know, theoretically,
I thought Littleton Apothecary was because it's being alone.
oh, I didn't realize it was. Are they an equity applicant, Anthony?
I'm
Did
not
they
sure.
qualify? So it's a very specific process. I'd have to check, Anna. They have to apply and they have to get certified by the CCC that they're an equity applicant.
Okay.
So unless they are qualified, which I guess I don't know the answer. I thought they were, but if they are, then only that specific licensee would qualify.
It's a moot point anyways, because they can't do it for 3 years no matter what.
Yeah, so then why are we even bothering with it?
Unless they're an equity applicant.
Right.
So that's the question. What if we say no delivery? I mean, what's,
Well,
So
then
if
they
you
get
s-
killed by delivery outside the town.
No, I think we need to have
Calculating for
delivery.
revenue.
okay.
We need the revenue. We need to have some sort of delivery. So why don't we
That's terrible outcome.
just
So
go with
they can
option
still,
two?
so just to be clear, they can enter into agreements with delivery licensees, but they can't be the delivery licensee. So
No,
it's
but
very
I understand,
complicated.
But that's a cut on their profit. Their operating margins just went up, probably substantially, and they don't have a choice.
Anyway,
It's
so-
just like Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Cost of doing business, right?
Well, but I mean, not.
I mean, Jared, there's nothing we can do about it. So
Yeah, no, you're right. There's nothing we can do about it.
So we should open up Uber Munchies.
You could draft a political oriented bylaw knowing it's going to get rejected just to go on the record to say,
No, let's not do it. Let's work on the second option then. Try to push it as close as we can to the 2 establishments that we have in here, knowing full well that they can't do anything for 3 years anyway. Because by that time, this whole thing's going to be a moot point anyway. But so we
Remember,
got-
it's not just the retailers. So as the bylaw is currently drafted, anyone can get these licenses,
Yeah, anybody.
including the cultivators and processors, which from the town's perspective, may be where you see the most revenue gain, because they could go after the operator license, which allows them to deliver at wholesale, and you would get the 3% retail tax on every product sold. So we're not just talking about the courier license, which may be associated with the retailers. We are talking about that wholesale distributor
Right.
that is likely to be more connected with the cultivators and processors.
So
So, all right, so the town will be whole, but the state will be whole, but the retail establishment's not going to be whole.
So the 3% is for anything that they sell, whether it goes to Littleton, whether it goes to Air, whether it goes to Acton, no matter where it is, it's where it comes from.
Correct. So
So
think of it as the meals tax.
Huge.
Okay, so we definitely need an entity in Littleton. So why don't we go with the second bylaw and not try to complicate it too much to get it shut down? Let's leave it at that. And
Well, at least we tried. I mean, we explored the options. It's just if it's not
Yeah.
possible, it's not possible.
Do we have a number that we need to work toward?
Do you mean a number of licensees?
Yes.
Yes, so you just can't prohibit. You can cap it at 1 if you wanted without going to the ballot. If you prohibit, then you have to go to the ballot. So you can do 1, 2, 3, as many or as few as you want. You can not have a cap if you want to have a cap.
Well, when you say, I mean, it's 3 types, right?
There's
Fine.
there's two types of delivery licensees. There's the marijuana courier and the marijuana operator. And then there's this other thing called a delivery endorsement, which is not a license.
How many of
It
those?
gets very complex.
Oh, it's very,
Well, how
every
many delivery-
time we turn around, there's another carve out.
How many of those can you have?
The endorsement is only with the micro businesses though, and we don't have any of those.
Correct. They're only with the micro businesses currently, and we do expect that to expand, but it has not. So again, you can cap any of these. This is within your police power as under home rule. So if you want to say only 10 delivery endorsements, only 10 delivery licensees, if you want to say only 2, you can set the limit if you choose.
No, but
You can also leave it open if you choose.
Okay, but that doesn't. That means we need to know the ins and outs of each one, of each type. So if I'm a micro business, what does that mean?
So micro businesses are small scale cultivators and processors.
And what's small scale?
I think they're capped at stage 1 and 2 tree canopies. So I think it's 10,000 square feet. Hold on, let me look that up.
So Jerry, if we don't have any of these currently in town, not saying that we won't in the future, but isn't it sort of a moot point to think about them in that way? Because we currently don't have them in town.
Well, yeah, I'm saying you don't want to be silent on it, right? At least in the bylaw, you want to say something to so you're going to say we have 3 types, right? So if you said, are you saying you can have 2 licenses for each type? Or are we saying you can have 2 licenses of any of the 3 types?
Okay, I think I see where the rub is coming here. The planning board, I believe, could put a cap on the number of special permits that you issue for delivery services. Planning board may not care what type it is, what type of application you're responding to, what type of applicant you're responding to. Each applicant would first go to the select board for a host community agreement and have to have, if you so choose, if the select board so chooses, they would have to have some sort of affiliation with the current retail establishment. And then the planning board could limit the number of special permits that you issue to a certain maximum.
Okay, so let's play this out. So let's say we let the courier in, right? It's totally independent, third-party courier. They can deliver it anywhere in Massachusetts, right? That's the current, right? So what if they come to us and say, well, I've got my license and I'm getting, 500,000 square feet of parking space because I'm going to be running 600 cars throughout Massachusetts a day, which is a possibility, right? Because let's face it, if you're delivering pot with a car, it's a high consumed product. So you could conceivably be looking at a substantially large size business with one of these licenses. So I think it's important to know, what are we trying to achieve here as far as scale, and what is the business impact of Littleton? So I think it's important to have an idea of what are we targeting versus the micro business, which seems a lot smaller, but 10,000 square feet, that's a lot of pot. So
Sorry, so it's up to 5,000 square feet of cultivation, and they can process 2,000 pounds.
how many cars does that support for delivery?
I don't have an answer to
I
that.
don't either. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that these are all the things we don't know, right? So as we draft this bylaw, if we just put an arbitrary number in, it doesn't really do anything for us because we don't know the impact.
But it's not like you're without control. I mean, it's a special permit process, right? So they have to meet the standards outlined in the bylaw. And we talk about in there certain restrictions. So if someone did come in with a huge facility that had significant impacts on the neighbors, it would be within your discretion to deny the permit.
Well, no, I'm not looking to deny anything. I'm looking to get a good product that works, that we achieve the financial results that we want to get out of this. I'm not trying to restrict anything. I'm trying to figure out how it would work and then what the impact would be so that you could optimize it, really. You're trying to optimize the bylaw to get the best economic result for all parties involved.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that we might be trying to make a zoning bylaw do too much. We have the process in place with a request for information and a host community agreement process that the select board can do to help make those determinations. I don't know that the zoning bylaw is a proper place to do that.
I don't either.
But
So I mean, it's a great question, Mara. Why I don't know the answer to that.
you know, we are asked to come up with a number. You know, I don't think it should be unlimited.
Oh yeah.
I think it probably should be more than 2, but you know, is that really the crux of this? Is the number of special permits or licenses? And you're talking, Ivrea, you were saying that some things are licensees and some things are not. And so does the special permit process encompass all of the types? Okay, so we are talking about, so we could decide to set a special permit number.
Well, why don't we,
change?
rather than beat ourselves over the head over a number right now, let's move forward with this and come up with a concept and then back ourselves into a number. You know, I mean, we need the concept first. You know, the number is secondary. We need to decide and weigh which entities we really want the license to go to. Growing facilities. I don't think we need, is probably the retail and the growing facilities are probably the ones we really should be, the ones that are already in town focusing on, and then not worry about micro this and all the other subsets of it until we have everything we put in.
Toby, we don't really know how this is going to work.
Of course we don't.
And even with the host community agreement, we don't really know how it would work.
But
And I don't think our bylaw, I mean, to Marin's point, I don't think our bylaw is actually going to get you to how it's actually going to work.
Probably not, but if we can at least limit the field as to how many people can actually come in and ask.
Who would we negotiate that number with? The selectmen?
That's within your purview to suggest to town meeting to include in your bylaw.
So essentially, if we put a number in here and the bylaw gets put on the agenda at town meeting, then the residents decide whether or not that's the right number or not.
That's so arbitrary.
Well, I think it's going to be
What would
difficult
you
to explain
recommend?
at town
Well, here's a
meeting.
number. We have no rationale for the number.
I think Jeff makes a good point that you just interrupted him on. It's going to be difficult at town meeting.
I don't even understand what this is all about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
I agree with Jeff. I don't understand.
so if we have a number, it should be low, and we can always come back and say we want to support existing businesses. We have an existing grow facility. Let's do a couple of these licenses, and if we need more, we'll get more.
So let's,
I want to make sure that the planning board feels like they have a good grasp on this. So is there something specific that you're struggling to understand? Maybe I can try to present it in a different way that would help you grasp it.
It's the 5 classification, and we might be able to understand it after going through several meetings.
Yeah.
But town meeting, people are just going to focus on XYZ, and we can't. None of us could get up there and really give a. Anna did a form-based code thing that was excellent, but I don't. Which one of us could give at this point? I don't know. So we really have to hang it on something simple. And that might be a number, and it might be what we want to support, and that
maybe
might
it's number 2, but look, only because we have 2 of everything now. So
Mark,
that would be sort of understandable, and
this sounds like the first approval. I think we came up with 2 because it was safe. The rationale is it's 2 because it's safe.
Yeah. Well,
So the reason that we came up, the reason that we came up with 2 previously is that if you had less than 2, you would have had to get ballot approval from the voters. 2 was the lowest you could potentially have without having to go to the ballot.
Wasn't there something with the number of liquor licenses too?
Exactly. It's tied to your liquor licenses. That's how we calculated the 2.
So ours was like 1.6, if my memory is right.
Exactly. And you have to round up.
Right. You had to round up. But that's how we came up with the 2 back then.
Exactly. So it did come from someplace.
Yeah, it wasn't just
wasn't-
picking a number in the.
Exactly.
Well, technically speaking, this could be done in the same manner, and I like the idea of starting with a smaller number than a bigger number, just to see how it work out the kinks. And if this is truly a boon that Littleton wants to continue to do, then we can increase the number.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, that works.
I mean, that just feels better to me than to have sort of the Wild West and it's open up to everybody and anyone who wants it can come in. So,
And it tracks with the number of retail establishments we have, and that's understandable.
So should we present it 0 or 2, just so that people can decide when we go to town meeting, so everybody has the advantage of voting for it or against it? Because that was one of the problems with the last vote we had on cannabis, was that some people didn't think they could vote 0. But we'll tell them what 0 means is that other towns are going to get the revenue, and you're still going to have delivery in the town of Littleton no matter what. So better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, and let's get a few bucks out of it, right?
Well,
No,
zero,
it-
it'd have to be part of an election.
Correct,
Right.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we tried this in another community where they put 2 options on the town meeting warrant. One that was a full prohibition and one that allowed retail. And it was very confusing, and both ended up failing. And then you also at the same time have to put it on the ballot, and because of in the off chance that the prohibition passes at town meeting, you don't have enough time between the election and the town meeting. So there was this ballot question at the election that really didn't have any weight anymore because it had failed at town meeting. So it created this inconsistency. So we would really not advise that. It can be very difficult.
I have a procedural question on that. So if you put an article out for 2 licenses, they say no, does that mean we automatically have a prohibition? Or it's just no, we didn't vote for 2 licenses?
Exactly. And then we would have to read our current bylaw and look at the current state statute and make a decision as to what would govern.
Okay. All right, so we'll put the 2 in. Mara, does anyone have the?
Mark, I would recommend you not put 2 in. It's just like Ivrea said, it's going to be more difficult enough to explain one bylaw. If the planning.
No,
board
I
votes-
meant the number.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
Yeah.
number, not 2,
Thank you.
not 2 bylaws.
No, the number 2, right?
The number.
We have 2 now. Let's
Yeah.
go with the number 2. Let's
Go with
move
that.
forward. Draft a bylaw and hold a public hearing, another public hearing on it, and see if we're getting what kind of input we get. I mean, we've spent a fair amount on this right now, and I think we just barely scratched the surface. I was asking you if anybody that's in the audience had their hand up. Or are they just going to let us muddle through this and look like morons?
Yeah, nobody with a hand
No
up.
one wants to touch this? Okay.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Yeah.
So can we have, we'll work on number 2 and gear it that way. And if you can skew it towards the Littleton preference, that would be great without getting the Attorney General's, having her
What was the term you used? Local interest?
local interest. Yeah, local preference.
Local preference.
Local preference.
Is that acceptable to the Attorney General? Is that language problematic?
I think it's problematic. I think the better way of approaching this is to work with the select board so that they issue some type of request for interest and then prioritize applicants that have a connection to Littleton, something similar to what we did in the marijuana retailer
Leave it with
context.
them. Okay.
Personally, I think that's the better course of action.
Okay.
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 Ivrea, you had 3 questions that you were asking of us in the document. Would you like to go through those now? Are they pertinent in order to have this move forward for the hearing at the next meeting?
Yeah, it would be helpful to just confirm the information. So if you look at the second option with the special permit, in part 3, I say that marijuana delivery licensees can be located in industrial A and industrial B. And I just wanted to confirm, it sounds like we want retailers to be able to get these licenses as well. So we'll have to also allow them to operate in the retailer overlay district.
Both of our licensed facilities are, in prospective facilities, are going to be in industrial A or industrial B.
Okay. Okay. So that's okay then. All right. And then it's currently drafted to just limit the number of special permits that may be issued to delivery licensees. We can set that at 2, as we just discussed. But you also have the possibility to limit delivery endorsements, which would allow an establishment right now, just micro businesses, to deliver their own product. Because you don't, I guess, does the board want to also limit the amount of delivery endorsements available in town? Or do you want delivery endorsements to be within that 2 cap?
So the thing with the delivery endorsement, which seems to me the simplest thing if you had a retail establishment, and you said that there is a possibility that in the future they may extend this to...
I would assume.
So I don't think we want to preclude that.
Okay.
So...
We can just leave that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
but then that also means that we have to put a number to it, right? Or
You don't have to.
well, if we don't put a number to it though, Jeff, then that means that we could get 10 applicants.
Well, but that then doesn't it come up, it's up to the selectmen to sort out which are appropriate and which aren't. I mean, I don't know, maybe we do have a number. I don't know. But this is sort of like a 2-step process. You know, we're going to give this armature and then the selectmen are going to, you know, fill it all in.
Why don't we wait until we get all the different, everything sorted out? We're gonna have 2 here, and we decide as we go down the list if we're gonna have more than 2, or maybe we just don't even include them, or something. How many licenses are we gonna want? 6, 8, 9 by the time we're done with the different subgroups?
Well, and then we have this thing, the licenses and their endorsements, and they're different, and so we'd have to, like Anna, you're right, we'd have to attach a different number to each category.
Right.
And I think with the delivery endorsements, they're only available to micro businesses right now. And it might change. And if it does change in the future, you can also change your bylaw at that time.
Mark, are you saying that we would go down the list of all the different types of marijuana establishments that we have right now and assign a number to each of them? So there will be more than 2 total?
I think we're gonna have to, because we're gonna have more than 2 different entities or kind of entities that are gonna ask for it. Could
I'm
potentially.
saying, that's why this is nuts. You can. We don't know what we're doing.
Well, I was walking away with the impression that we were doing 2,
2 total.
period.
Total?
Well, maybe
Then that's fine. Let's leave it at 2
Total.
total. Let's leave it at 2 total.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look fine, rather than muddy it even more. So let's forget about microbrewery, whatever. The first 2 in the door, whoever get it, get it.
Micro.
Okay.
No.
So
And
what I
then-
heard you say was whoever is first in the door gets it out of
Well,
who?
they
I thought it
got
was
first
just
shot at
for retailers.
What?
What
We
you just
can't-
said is whoever's first then gets it. And I'm asking the question, I thought this was just for the retailers. You're,
Well, but the selectmen can say no to everyone except the retailers. Isn't that correct?
The selectmen can issue an RFP, RFI, and prioritize connection to Littleton if they so choose. But
Sanctuary
just to
right now-
clarify, a marijuana retailer, they would have to obtain a delivery license in order to deliver product right now, because they can't get the endorsements. So it's a whole new license structure. And what we don't know is whether marijuana retailers are going to have an appetite at this moment to go after a marijuana delivery license, or whether they're going to wait for the endorsement. I mean, this is all an unknown to us.
Wait, you just said they have to wait 3 years anyways.
um, in order to get a delivery license, they have to qualify as an equity applicant, and that's a 3-year process.
But Anna, the retailers could get one, and also the grower, Sanctuary, could get one. That's my point. If Sanctuary comes in before any of the retailers come in, they would get it first. And hopefully we're going to go with the Littleton preference, and we would probably want the grower to be the first one.
So,
But
Mr.
that's
Chair,
going to be from the select board, not us.
Select board,
make
yes.
a
but they-
recommendation then, and this would need to be done quickly, obviously, because we want to get this out for a town meeting. But could one or two of our members connect with Anthony and perhaps one or two of the select board members to kind of come to some
Consensus?
strategy about how to approach this because of all of the establishments? Because I think we all have different ideas of what it could look like, but because it does require the select board to sort of initiate that process, it would be good to be able to have those joint conversations offline and then come back at the hearing with the recommended strategy.
I'm good with that. Anthony?
We have
The
a question.
Yeah, Cindy has her hand up, so
Mhm.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
Oh,
now.
hi, sorry. So I've been listening to this. I am a little bit confused. I agree with Jerry's suggestion that a grid would have been very helpful just to sort of sort through this. But I do agree that we just need a little bit more information. More than happy to continue this discussion, but I mean, personally, and I know Jerry asked for this at the last meeting, a grid would be really helpful just to try to get a visual of what we're dealing with and the decisions to help make informed decisions about moving forward with this. I just feel like it's complicated.
Wicked complicated.
Well, it's complicated because we don't know what the state's going to do. We're
Right.
throwing a dart at a dartboard and we can't even see the dartboard.
Right, but I think with having a grid with the options, it would be really helpful to be able to sort through this a lot easier than the discussion that's taken place so far tonight. I just don't want us to make the wrong decision. So I think it would be helpful to have that personally.
So if my memory serves me correctly, Mark, when we were talking retail, and Cindy, you can answer this too, didn't we have two select board members and 2 planning board members that kind of hashed out some of the details with this? So is
We
that
did.
what the suggestion is, to maybe look at and
Yeah.
have a,
Yeah, I think
Anna,
that
you
would be
were on it,
helpful.
right?
Right, so it was Ed and I and Cindy and Chuck.
Well, Ed's not with us anymore, but Anna, do you want to stay on it? And maybe you and Jerry want to do it?
Um,
Well, it has to be yeah, we got to come up with some type of cohesion between what the select board responsibility is and how it's going to tie into our bylaw. And if it's not comprehensive, they may try and do their part and be like, damn, it doesn't work. And they won't know until they try. And that's not a good place to be. Like, we need a path. We need a clear path, line of sight to actually do it once we approve it. And I think it'd be tough to defend in front of the town if we can't even articulate
Get it right ourselves.
a clear line of sight between all the stakeholder boards that will be involved in making these decisions.
Well, do you want to meet offline before our next meeting in March? And you guys, the 4 of you, or if you can, I'll do it with, if Anna wants to do it, I'll do it with Anna, and we can meet with Cindy, hopefully Cindy and someone else, and try to weed through it so that we have something coherent that we can all put up on the screen and kind of walk through it.
Well, I mean, you want to do how do you guys do this stuff in the town?
Well, 4 people can meet in 103 and walk through it. You can still do a Zoom meeting.
I don't, Anthony, how do you guys facilitate? You guys use like a Miro board or something? How do you build stuff like this?
as far as building like a grid or a flow chart, Jerry?
Yeah, lay the whole thing out. Like, we got to lay a
Yeah.
whole skeleton out. Then we can fill out the skeleton, put a whole
Right.
bill.
So I can try to attempt to create a grid-like document that can show which licensees may have an interest in obtaining other licenses, but you're really getting into corporate structure now because there's no like, it's talking about whether the entity that holds a marijuana retailer license can also hold another license. That's what you're asking is, can an entity at the same location hold multiple licenses? That's the question you're asking.
Let's try it another way. So there'll be a couple of use cases that'll come up, right? It'll be a retail license. I'm just going to throw out a straw man scenario. It doesn't even have to work in real life. So a retail establishment wants to get a delivery license. They apply for a special permit from the planning board. They get approval. Then they go to the selectmen, and this is the criteria the selectmen need to consider. And then that would then mesh in with our approval under the special permit. And then the selectmen have a clear line of sight and all the things they have to do and consider in order to make that work. And then when they get that final approval, you got a finished package. It's all going to work. Rinse and repeat. Otherwise, we're all shooting in the dark. So when you go and ask the town to vote on this, we're all going to say, well, we think it'll work.
So, I mean, I do think there's things to think through, but we aren't shooting in the dark in terms of process because we've done this before. It goes first to the select board. They can create a list of considerations that they value when they're looking at different applicants. Then once the HCA is executed, they come to the planning board and they have conversations more site specific. And that's when, if you choose, you would issue the permit and that allows them to move forward. So it's the same process that we went through with the marijuana retailers. If you're saying that maybe we should re-examine or revisit that process, we definitely can. But the way it's drafted right now mirrors the way that we went through it with the retailers.
Well, and we should probably take this discussion offline because we have, I don't know, is one of the establishments still in front of us?
Yeah, we still have one. We're in the middle of permitting right now.
We have one so let's just say we've had some process issues there, right? So this would be an opportunity to revisit the whole process to see how it would look. And then we got a good operational path. I mean, because you want to smooth this out, right? You don't want to be an impediment to new job, new business creation, right? You want it to flow smoothly. Time is critical for starting a new business. And I just want to make sure we kind of all know what we do. And more importantly, that we can communicate back to our biggest stakeholder, which is the town, that we've contemplated this. We've thought this through. We were deliberate. We think this is the best path forward. And we can defend that recommendation at town meeting. That's the only place I don't want to get to.
So I have another process question. Maren, from a timing standpoint, when were you planning on putting this on the agenda? Was it the March 18th meeting?
And by the agenda, you mean when are we holding the public hearing?
Yes, when are we having?
March 18th was the date I was looking at.
Okay.
We could do it later than that, but.
Well, if we did it March 18th and we have to back it up, don't we have to give, is it 2 weeks notice on it or is it just 1 week?
It takes about 3.5 weeks to open a public hearing.
So we're just going to be cutting it close.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Why don't we put it on for the 18th? Why don't we meet offline to try to hammer it out when Myron and Vera have something? Maybe the planning board and select board get together for a meeting one afternoon to make sure we're all on the same page. Because we've spent an hour here and we still don't know where we're going.
Well, it's complicated.
I know, especially
Jerry,
with
I would highly suggest that you be a part of that meeting if it happens.
who?
Jerry should be
Jerry.
a part of that meeting.
Fine, if you and Jerry want to do it, that's fine with me. I'm not going to hurt my feelings.
I cannot promise I'm available during the day. It's not possible.
All right, we'll see what happens. If Jerry can't do it, then I'll figure a way to do it. But we'll set up a time. Let us know when you have something and you want us all sit down together.
Well, Anthony, I think you understand the intent, right?
I do. Yeah, I do.
You guys,
Okay. Maren, anyone else have their hands or can we move on to something else?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, can we move on to the 40R smart growth since we have Mark here and rather than keep him and his crew any longer than we absolutely have to? Or do you want to go with senior residential, that other stuff?
If I recall, there were no outstanding questions on the senior residential and inclusionary housing.
I had a
Okay,
couple questions still, so if we could do that at the end, I'm fine.
all right, let's do it at the end. So we can get Mark and his crew in. They've been
Yeah,
patient.
and Mark, sorry, but Maren is aware of this, that I have to leave at 8 o'clock. So
Yeah, so
if-
let's start it right away. We've got 8
Okay.
o'clock your time or 8 o'clock our time?
8 o'clock your time.
Okay, just
It's
checking.
only 5:30 here.
Just checking. All right, so let's,
Okay, and I'm sorry, Cindy Napoli has her hand raised.
it's too late, Cindy, I already asked.
No,
No,
I
go
know. No, I just wanted to talk about the senior bylaw changes when you do discuss that. I had some comments, questions.
Can we do it after, like,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I raised my hand too soon.
all right, okay, that'd be great. So let's
Okay.
get Mark and his group together, see where we're at with the 40R smart growth design guidelines and bylaw, and where we're at with the DHCD. Mark? Everybody has headsets.
Yep. So I'll start off with saying that we got from Peter Flinker this afternoon an updated design guidelines. He responded to the questions from the board and the resident questions that had come in. So I'll get that posted and out to you shortly. But I believe that one's ready to go in draft form to DHCD, so they can start the review of at least that portion of it.
Great.
And then I did a partial revision of the 40R bylaw based on the discussions, and Joe Layden provided some reference to Grafton bylaw that has sub-districts, and I'll borrow that wording and tweak it and put that into the 40R bylaw draft. Should have that ready early next week, if not tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think Mark has some updates for you on their work.
So I'm here tonight with Lily Perkins High, who's on the screen, and I think Alyssa might be in the audience as well, so we may pull her in if we need her. Maren, do you want to show the maps, or do you want Lily to share her screen?
If Lily could, that would be great.
Okay, so I think you may need to make her a co-host or give her permission to do that. But the bottom line is that Lily and Alyssa have been working on doing some mapping here, and there are 4 maps that have been completed so far. First one basically shows the zoning, the 2 parcels, the R1130, which is split into these 2 parcels. You can see the white line. There you go. The next map as well. That's good. And so this shows the ownership, and then the map that shows the density. Lily, that's the one. This is showing the high density zone, the medium density zone, and the low density zone. Low density zone is entirely on the nursing home facility. The medium density and the high density zone are on the southern parcel. These follow the sketch map that Maren had prepared for discussion at the last meeting. And one of the things that you had wanted to do this time was to think about whether these, well, what the implications were of these. So what Alyssa and Lily have done is they've started the analysis of the 40R units that would be produced by the 40R bylaw based upon the DHCD calculations. And using that set of calculations, they take out the wetlands. So Lily, if you want to show the wetlands map there as well. They took out the wetlands as an undevelopable area. There were no steep slopes within this area, steep enough to cause it to be unbuildable. So within this area, you had the high density area that was a total of 27 acres, and the developable portion thereof was about 18 and a half acres. Now, also looking at this high density area, the area closest to Foster Street was to be the mixed use area. You chose at the last meeting to leave that in the high density area, but also have it be mixed use. And the way that was going to be done was simply by stating that any commercial uses in the high density area had to be within 300 feet of Foster Street, which means basically that they are south and east of the wetlands, between the wetlands and Foster Street. So going through the DHCD calculations, it looks like this would yield somewhere a little over 500 units, according to the DHCD calculations. So that set of calculations, though, is based solely on DHCD's need to figure out the zoning incentive payment. The zoning incentive payments are directly related to the expected number of units that would be developed. However, the way the bylaw, like all bylaws, is written, it's based upon the gross land area within the zone. So if you say 20 units per acre and you have 27 acres in that southernmost parcel, you have a possibility of 554 units within the high density area. Under the DHCD calculation, that comes out to only about 368 units because they're only using the developable land and calculating the density on the developable land. So bottom line is, if you look at the 20 units per acre for the high density, the 12 units per acre for the medium density, and the 8 units per acre for the low density, you wind up with 554 units in the high density area, 89 units in the medium density area, and 129 units in the low density area, for a potential total of 772 units under the zoning. Mentioning this only because you had talked last time about the possibility of establishing a cap on the total number of units within the district or within each of the sub-districts that would then total up to a total for the district. If you make the cap lower than the DHCD calculation, then that will impact your zoning incentive payment. So for instance, if the final DHCD calculation says it's 509 units, and you say we're going to cap the total at 500 units, that will put you in a different category for your zoning incentive payment. But if you say, well, we think that 525 units would be fine, that's less than the 772, excuse me, that can be calculated just based on zoning density, but it's higher than the DHCD calculation. And so that would not impact the zoning incentive payment that would be coming to the town from DHCD. So that's where we've gotten so far. And what really we need is discussion and decision by the board as to whether or not these districts work for you the way they're set up, we followed exactly what you had the last time, but we want to make sure that the numbers work for you. And then two, do you want to have a cap? Because the cap would need to, A, go into the bylaw that Maren is drafting, and B, it would have to go into the application to DHCD.
Well, one of the issues that we're going to have is if we go to town meeting and tell people there's going to be 700 units there, that might be a little problematic. So I think we should put a number on it that's realistic with what we really want out there, not a pie in the sky number just to, because don't we have to give the money back if we don't build that many units? If we only build, let's say we get up to 400 units, we have to give the 200 units back if we're at 600. Don't we have to give the money back?
You know, Mark, I would have to check on that. If there's no activity within the district within a certain number of years, yes, then the state can ask for the money back. But I don't believe that if you have 450 instead of 500 units, that you have to give back the difference. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I will check.
So
How much money?
If it's more than 500 units, it's a $600,000 payment to the town.
And if it's between 201 and 500, then it's $350,000.
So I say we go to for the 600,000, but we make sure that everybody at town meeting knows that we're capping it that high for the payback from the state. And
What are you going to do with the 600,000?
I'm sure the town can find something to do with the 600,000. I think we just give it a select board like everything else and let them figure out well, hopefully part of it's going to go for infrastructure and other things like that. But it's, the town's going to, obviously the different boards are going to figure out what's the best, whether it's going to Foster Street or water improvements or it's going to go somewhere like that, I'm sure.
I know, but what kind of number are you looking for as far as housing goes? Like, what's the difference between 500, 600, 700? I mean, what are you trying to achieve?
Who are you asking that question to?
You.
Me? I'm
Yeah.
trying to get this bylaw through town meeting, and I think if you tell people there's going to be 700 units on that property at Foster Street, I think you might get a little pushback. If you told them we're going to be 320 of these and another 80 of that, maybe 400 is a lot more palatable than 700. I do think we should, if we're going to do it at 7, the area where it says low density, that's included in there, and that's maybe in the future, it's seeing how this works. There is a way to approach it at town meeting to let everyone know that we're doing it for the maximum grant from the state, but that we expect 400, not 700 in there. So
You're talking, let's just lay this out. So at 2 cars per unit, that's 500 units. That's 1,000 cars.
we're hoping it's not going to be reason. See this little purple line here? That's the train track, Jerry. And the reason we're doing all of this is because people aren't going to have cars because the train track is going to be there and the people are going to jump on the train track and they're going to go other places. That's why we don't need 2 cars for everybody there.
You're
That's
joking.
what this whole thing is all about.
Okay.
So we don't need I don't think we're going to have much of a chance if we tell them 700 apartments there.
Have you ever been to a city before?
I bet, yeah. I've been to
You're going
Boston
to create
once.
a parking problem in Lincoln?
No, this is going to have to support the vehicles for the people that live there. That's part of Mark's whole design and everything else, where to put the cars and everything. I'm not talking about.
I'm not trying to solve the number. I'm just saying if it's a political number, that's one thing. But is there like a number that we should do to support the plan?
I think the reality is, I think all the early stuff that the committee had looked at was about 400, 320 in the high density and 80 in the medium density. That's what we looked at, 400. If we say the 700, we're going because we want $600,000, not $350,000. I think most of the residents at town meeting would understand that, knowing full well that it's our intention to cap it at maybe 400 or something like that, or they'd have to come in. But a lot of this is going to go into that area that's low density, and the person that owns the property right now doesn't own that. That's owned by the assisted living facility right now. So this would be on their property.
Excuse me.
So we're
Mr.
just-
Chair. So I have a question about these different areas, or excuse me, I have a question about the different numbers that we're currently talking about. I think some of it has to do with how wastewater will be treated. Are we talking sewer here or septic? How are all of these homes going to be serviced?
This couldn't possibly be done without either a tie-in to the municipal sewer or a private package treatment plant.
Right. So the talk is to maybe find a couple of sites in this area and try to package it together. Obviously, to get the higher density out there, that's probably what we're going to have to do. But right now, we're just looking at how many units get out there, and it's going to be dependent upon septic anyway, one way or the other.
So even at the highest number at 700, that particular wastewater treatment plan would work, even at the highest number of 700.
We don't even have a treatment plant proposed yet.
Well, I know, but I'm just simply saying, I mean, that's one of the things that we should at least consider, right?
It's a good question.
Right. The
But-
calculations that DHCD requires doesn't include any information about utilities, including wastewater. It's purely a mechanical calculation. The question of how much could actually be developed on the site would depend on getting some more detailed engineering data that the town shouldn't need to develop. That should be provided by the developers.
I know, but
Exactly.
if we approve, let's just say we approve 700, right? And the engineering answer is going to be it's just got to tie into town sewer, whether we run an extension pipe down there and pump, or we solve it with a site down there. Either way, the town has to plan for 700.
I think there's so many factors, and wastewater is one of them. The other one is, I mean, there's just so many. I mean, we have these design guidelines, which, have beautiful pictures, and to accomplish that, you're not going to be able to cram a whole bunch of units on here. And I think there's so many issues, and I guess I'm coming down to, do we, first of all, as a citizen, I don't want to create a terrible thing for $250,000 to the town. It doesn't make sense to me. I think we should definitely, and the other thing is, sewer is so hard to do already in town. I think we should prescribe that they have to do an on-site packaged system. They have it at on the Great Road 40B, and it serves the houses and it serves the apartments. I'm concerned with the height that's allowed, which would, if it had my way, they would go down, and that might limit the number of units. I've worked on laying these things out. There's so many factors. And the other thing that I question is, if you allow a high number, they're going to really reach to get to that high number, whether it makes sense or not. That's just the way it is. I would rather go for a lower number. I mean, I don't know what that is. It might be 500. It might be 450. I mean, I think when you were talking about the numbers for the high density zone, etc., that made sense to me. But all I'm saying is that there are a lot of factors and site limitations and design limitations that you may not be able to get all these units on the site. And maybe it's not. Listen, drive down, Westford Road or whatever, with all these things they built in Chelmsford. Those are gross. And if we're going to go through all this trouble to get a couple of those buildings on this site, I don't think that's the way we should go.
The number is purely for the state. What's going to go out there is really going to be what works aesthetically, through septic. All of those things are going to be out there. When the committee was together, and Delisa helped me here before you leave me floundering, I thought our spot was about 400. It was 320 in the high
Okay.
density and about
Better than
8.
700, yeah.
Right, but no, the 700 is just to tell the state so they'll give us the money. If you want to be more realistic and say 400 and not have to worry about giving any money back, then we go with the number 400. If you want to go with 700 and we keep our fingers crossed that they never know that we didn't build 300 units out there, then Town of Littleton gets $250,000 and we
First
can,
off, I don't think saying that on public television is appropriate.
well, okay.
Well,
The
but not,
point-
I'm telling you straight up, that's in another forum, that's fraud.
The point is, we have to show them how many we could technically get. We don't know because there's a parcel in there that we have no control over. You think that's funny, at least, huh? Thanks. We have a parcel that will fit the other 200 units. We don't know if the developer is even interested in building them. So it's not a pie in the sky number. It's an actual number that works. We have not been able to engage the owner of that property to even respond back to us if they're interested in it. So this 400 can fit very easily in the two spaces down below. I wish the picture was still up there, but in the two pieces down below, the yellow piece up above, 300 units could be up there. We just don't know if the developer is ever going to be interested. The people that own the assisted living or independent, the nursing home, have not engaged us, whether they're interested, they're not interested, or whatever. So it's not a number that isn't attainable. It is attainable. So we should put it down there and get credit for it and cap it and decide if we want to cap it at 400. That's the issue that's before us right now.
So
Well, anyways, I agree with just about everything Jeff said. There's a lot of moving parts here. If 400 is a number and you can defend it, great. But I haven't heard anything rational to what supports 400.
can I ask a question of Mark Rassicot, please? Mark, of the three different areas, is there a defined sort of number within each of those different areas? So as
Yes.
Mark just
Yes,
said,
it would be.
okay,
yes.
can you tell us what those
So-
are? Would be helpful.
Sure. In the high density area,
And I'm going to interrupt. Lily, go ahead and share your screen again.
Yeah. Mark, I have that spreadsheet up if you think it would be helpful.
why don't you, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Lauren, I have to go now.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thanks for your support, Elisa. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
So if you look at the left-hand part of the screen, this is the development yield per the DHCD calculation. And as you can see in the yellow box, this is based on the gross buildable land area as defined by DHCD. If you look in the right hand, it's based on the gross total land area within each of the subdistricts. So the high density subdistrict has a total of 27.7 acres in it. At 20 units per acre, that is 554 units. That's the way the zoning is currently written. It's 20 units per acre for the entire district, for the entire subdistrict. Similarly, medium density is about 7.5 acres that could yield 89 units at 12 units per acre. And the low density, which is the nursing home property, you've set aside about 16 acres of that 40-acre property to be part of this 40R. And that is at 8 units per acre, which is the low density. That could be 129 units. So that's what could actually be built under the zoning. From the standpoint of the calculations, from DHCD's standpoint, because they take the wetlands out and only calculate the density based upon the remaining developable land, the total number of units is lower. They also then have a correction for the mixed use area, because you have the ability to have 40,000 square feet of commercial space that has to be taken into account. And that would be basically about 10% of the size of the potential number of units. So that reduces the possible number of units in DHCD's eyes to 526. And then they further reduce the zoning incentive payment because the nursing home property could have 14 to 17 units built on it now because it's 16 acres in the 40,000 square foot district. That's the existing zoned units. So those come out as well. So the DHCD number is going to be somewhere around 509 to 512 units. We have to sharpen our pencils a little bit on the calculations for the existing zoned units, but it's going to be on that order of magnitude as far as DHCD is concerned. But the question is, what number do you want to put in the bylaw? And if the number you put in the bylaw is higher than that number on the left side, then you probably won't be impacting your zoning incentive payment. If you set that number at 400, then DHCD will calculate the payment based on 400 units.
So why can't we adjust the zoning to conform with the DHCD calcs? So for instance, the high density would go to 14 or 15 units an acre. The medium density would go to 10 units an acre. The low density is fine, 8 units an acre is, but I just don't think we should allow through zoning that amount of development there. That's a lot.
Yeah, but what's not a lot for you?
Well, I'm skeptical of making this. I mean, if you look at the whole town, what do we have, like 2,000 houses? I don't know.
3,800. There's 3,800 single-family homes in Littleton per the last census.
Okay.
So Jeff, so when the board that met before and got all this going and has handed it off to the planning board, our numbers that we're always using before was like 320 for the high density. The medium density was 66 to 80, somewhere around there. And we did not really take into account the low density, the 129 there. We want to put it in there because we want it as part of the 40R, but we have no indication.
I think those numbers are fine. And I think that's what the zoning should reflect. And I don't think we should stretch to grind out what in the big picture in a $40 million a year operation is pretty small. We can't even say what we're going to use it for.
Okay.
So
that it's always been in real numbers, what we expect to go out there is 320 and 80, about 400 units. That's what we've been working on.
Plus then the 129 in the low density?
No, we have never, we've discussed where to put
No, but
it.
the DHCD is going to put in the 129. So
We're going to put it in there because we're including in the district. We've never really designed what low density will look like. To an extent, we have a rough idea of it, but we've not been engaged by the developer. The person that owns the high and the medium density has been involved with us, and they're in this meeting tonight as well. They're aware of what the numbers we are talking about. The low density people, we have tried numerous times to engage the people that own the nursing home, and they have not responded back. We'd like the road to go through there. We'd like the connectivity through there and everything else. We can't get an answer out of them, but we are including it, hopefully, because once this is enacted, then we can redesign, maybe keeping some of the traffic off of Foster Street by having the traffic come in down the road that takes you there and cuts across, so we keep some of it off of Foster Street. That's another reason there's still.
So I guess my point is, why can't we just make the zoning numbers conform to what you just said?
They do. We can.
Actually, we have 40R district. You have a minimum density requirement of 20 units per acre for high density and 12 units per acre. You could go the other route of tweaking the size of those districts.
It will make the medium density extended more toward the residential abutters and try to. This is
Well, yeah, when you overlay that with the wetlands map, then you'll see that there is a very good,
Say there's all wetlands in front. So the
Yeah.
high density is all proposed to be in the back part.
Sure.
There's a crest there, and we're gonna try to tuck the buildings, the higher buildings, the 3-story buildings behind the crest so that they'll look like 2-story buildings from everybody else, but the people zipping past them on 495. We're trying to use topography there to shelter the buildings by dropping them down the hill. If you've ever taken a look on 495, you'll notice it's quite a steep grade
Yeah.
there. We
Oh,
want to
yeah,
put
yeah.
everything behind the grade so that you won't know that they're 3-story buildings or whatever. If there's a garage under or whatever, you're not going to know it because they're going to look like regular 2-story buildings there. That's
But
what.
you're gonna see the high density piece up front.
What?
You'll see the high density piece. You won't see the low density.
Yeah, you won't see the low density, and you'll only see 2 stories of a story and a half maybe of the high density
Of the
back
high
there.
density.
So and you'll see nothing in the front because it's all wet. There'll be a little mixed use way in the front. There's the piece way down in the front, which you can
But
see.
you're talking 368 units on that postage stamp.
It's not a postage stamp. It's the whole. Half of this is 43 acres, and then there's another 20 acres up there. It's not exactly tiny.
No, I'm talking about the high density.
High density is going to go right there. What did we say, Mark? It was how many acres?
30, it's like
It's
27.
27 acres.
Yeah,
Yeah,
27 acres.
368 units on.
So I guess it also plays into the thing that I focused on when I was looking through the bylaws, the height of the buildings, and 50 feet is too high because you will get,
and that's what we have proposed for Taylor Street, and we're not considering Taylor Street now. So this would be,
well, what I'm saying is that the height will, if we reduce the height, it would tend to limit the amount of units that could go on here, regardless of the, of the perfect number. I'm just telling you, developers will reach toward that high number. They just will.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
no doubt.
Well,
And, maybe by the time you get an on-site septic and, you have parking and, I don't know. I'm concerned about the height and I'm concerned about that. So I'm with you, Mark. If you talk to 770 units to town meeting,
yeah, no way.
not going to go anywhere.
Mhm.
So like I said, the realistic number is about 400, high and medium, and then low density is another 129.
Wait, I thought the ratio, the ratio right there under the 40R column C, that's you have to do that to qualify for 40R.
Yes.
So the only way you can adjust the number is to play around with the acreage.
Correct.
I think that I have heard, and I will confirm this with Bill Ralph, but I know that in several other locations, Bill has been allowing a maximum cap that would be
Okay.
within the district. So you can say, look, you can build at 20 units an acre. You can build up to, 300 some odd units, but that's going to be it. We're not going to allow beyond that. So in a way, it's not really meeting the 20 units per acre density because you're putting a cap on it. But what it basically means is developer doesn't have to use all of the land. They can use part of the land.
Already there's a lot of wetlands that they can't use.
Yeah.
So it's going to be packed into, well, that would be.
How do you
let's clarify that.
calculate? I mean, if you say you can't, is it going to be an arbitrary cap? How are you going to come at the cap number for each zone?
Well, we would try to back into what Mark and his committee has talked about.
But like I said, we've done design and everything else, and the number that looks good from a design with the streetscapes we're looking at, everything is about 320 for the high density and 66 to 80 for the townhouse / cottages that are going to go up in the medium density.
So you got to put some kind of cap rate in based on that.
Well, what's going to drive this is the property itself. If it doesn't work and they can't get it to fit, they're not going to get 320, and they'll get 250 if that's what the septic allows, and that's what
I'm talking about the bylaw. You
the
got
bylaw has to
a
be.
cap number in the bylaw, and you're going to sell it to town, not.
Right, and you could cap each sub-district.
Right.
So if you went with a cap that was approximately what was shown on that spreadsheet on the left-hand side in the DHCD calculations. We, in fact, had estimated that the high density would probably be around 330 units once you took the mixed use into account. So if you just said, 330 units in the high density, 66 units in the medium density, 120 units in the low density, that will come out to about 509 units altogether in the end. Well, it's 526. You'll get credit for 509 in your payment, but that would be a total of 526 units that would actually be built out there. And as far as DHCD is concerned, they would think that you are meeting your density requirements because that's the calculations that they request that you do.
Okay. Mara, does anyone have you want to open it up? Does anyone have their hand raised?
Yes. Cindy does.
Cindy, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
Good.
Good. So just a few comments, Mark, and I was trying to show my video. I don't mean to have my face blocked, but just a few comments based on the discussion. A few things. I think the monetary benefit to this project is going to be inconsequential.
You're muted.
Oh, we lost her.
You muted it.
All right, I'm back. Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the whole thing, it rebooted. Yeah, so, as far as talking about any monetary gain to the town from this development, I think is really inconsequential. I don't think that's going to be a selling point whatsoever with the town, just my comment personally. We're really decided to develop this area of town because we need the housing, and I just don't want us to lose sight of that. We need it for our seniors. We need housing for our 20 to 30 something year olds who can no longer afford to live in Littleton. It's the affordable component to this project that I don't want to see lost when we have these discussions. So I do appreciate, the numbers with DHCD. And the chart on the left, I think is really, is more spot on with what we're looking for and what I think that the residents of Littleton are going to accept with this project. If we come in and say we're going to propose 700 housing units in that part of town, it's never going to fly. People aren't going to accept it. So I think we need to, be realistic when we look at this project, but I just don't want to lose sight to why we are developing in this part of town. It's because we need the housing, we need the affordable component of it for our seniors and for the people that are getting priced out of Littleton. And one other comment I wanted to make, Mark, you had, Jerry had mentioned concerns about traffic, increased traffic. With that number of new residents living in that part of town, and you mentioned the train station, I really think that the pandemic has changed a lot of things, and a lot mainly that people aren't really commuting into the city to work anymore. A lot of people are now working from home. So as much as it's great to try to rely on commuter traffic to support that development, I think we just need to be cognizant of that, how things have changed due to the pandemic. So traffic and infrastructure certainly are a concern, that we need to really think about with the project as well. But I just don't want to lose sight as to why we're developing in this part of Littleton. The need.
I have a quick, Lily, can you put the map back up again? So why don't we go back to the fallback position that the Littleton train station committee came up with? No, okay. We concentrate on the high density and the medium density, and that our final number after design and everything else and all the pretty pictures and everything that Flinker and Dodge did was 400 units there. If you want to take the low density out of the 40R, I'm not recommending that we do that only because our thought is to get the people that own the nursing home engaged in it. But that's a whole separate entity. That's not being
Right.
planned right now. That's just for future development if we decide we want to go there. So that number, that 129, is not what we're really looking at. We're looking at 320 there and 80 in the median,
Right.
around 80. So
Yeah.
why don't we concentrate on that number?
Yeah, I agree. The low density is not a given.
Right.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. No, absolutely. Concentrate on the medium and the high density in those figures, absolutely. But 700 units just isn't an option.
No, we know, and there's no way we get
Yeah.
whoever's going to do this, and it's whoever does it at town, you get crucified at 7. So we
Right.
come in and we say what we're really looking at is these 400, and potentially, if we can, maybe some more senior housing up here in the low density, because the independent living and the nursing home is right here, would make sense. But that's not what we're proposing right now. There's nobody asking to build it. We don't know if it'll ever happen. It would have to be a special permit, but we wanted to do the 40R district, so we wanted to include it in there. Hopefully in the future, it'll be something we can address. But as of right now, we're only looking at these 2 spots.
Right. No, I understand that. And the 40 hours, absolutely. This is a great proposal. It's a great project. I just don't want to, I just think in having conversations going forward with respect to this project, just not losing sight of why we're doing it.
We're doing it to satisfy all the housing needs that we have in one place. We're going to, for senior housing, just like you said, Cindy, senior housing, low income housing, affordable housing, empty nesters, first time home buyers, renters, because there'll be rental units in there as well.
Right.
We're trying to address all the deficiencies in the town right here on this property for starters.
Yeah.
And that's what we tell a town meeting, and that's why we only picked this spot, by the way. We didn't want to overload the system with saying we're going to do it here, then we're going to do it, 500 feet down the road. We're starting here, seeing how everything goes, and hopefully townspeople will support this and vote in favor of it. We start here and then see what happens. But this is probably the smallest, and it's going to be the highest density we've ever given, but it's hopefully going to satisfy all the housing needs that we don't currently offer. That's what the whole intention of this was.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Right? So Mark is just doing an exercise to try to get us as much income as we can from it. If you want to stay at 400 units for what really is realistic there, or maybe 529 because that includes the other one, we should either be one or the other, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Right.
I think including the low density zone is sort of great because you can get up to the number that you need to get this payment. But I do think that there should be a cap in the zoning. And if Mark can advise us on that, I think that would be great.
Mark Ransky, yeah, sure. He can come up with the high density at 320 to 333 or whatever, and this one at 66 to 80. We can get that in there for the bylaw. And 129 for the low density. Mara, does anyone else have their hands up?
Just a moment. Not right now. No.
Okay.
Yes, hang on. Robert Long.
Mr. Long, are you there?
Hi, yes, I am. How are you guys today?
Good.
Good.
I just wanted to say, first of all, that there's no way that, being the landowners here, there's no way that we would even want to try to consider 700 units. It's just whether it was allowed or not. Our intention is to definitely do what is, what we agree with the town. I also want to mention that we've recently joined forces with A10 Associates, a group that has a lot of experience dealing in these type of developments and dealing with the state and the federal government. We feel like they're going to become a little bit more involved and may be able to work with the town. It's our intention we've asked them to be able to work with the town to search out and try to develop a plan that would benefit the development and the town. So I guess that's all I really want to say right now. I think that if we could plan to sit down and have a meeting, and then we could get together and try to move forward in that direction. We might find that there's other areas that we may be able to work with that can benefit the town, and that's our intention.
Thank you. You're talking about infrastructure for Foster Street, improvements there, paths, maybe some help with sewer or whatever we can get from the state, correct, Mr. Long?
Yes. And also working through the system with the state.
And more affordability too. You're working with mass housing as well too. Maybe we can get some money for even lower affordable. Right now, we're looking at kind of 25% at 80 AMI. So maybe we can get that even lower for some of the seniors. So
we just started to try to look to see what is available and what would be help and not in this. And hopefully within the next week or two, we could have a meeting, a meeting and decide how we'd like to move forward and if it would benefit us mutually.
That'd be great. Anytime you want to set up a meeting, either get in touch with Anthony or myself or Cindy, I'm sure would be happy to meet with you as well. Thank you. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
So Mark, are you okay with where we're going right now? You got a better idea? Are you muted?
The way I should be, right? The sounds to me like what you want to do is you want to set in the bylaw the numbers that are basically in the DHCD calculation, and that if possible, try to find a way to have some flexibility within that. You had talked last time about, maybe being able to move the line a little bit here or there. So, maybe say, approximately 330 units within the high density, approximately 66 within the medium density, approximately 129 within the low density, but no more than X total within the entire district. And each of the sub areas could go up or down 5%, as long as the total number doesn't exceed the 506 or 509.
Wait, that's not, I heard 400.
Jerry, it was 400 without the low density,
the low
element
density
in there.
The yellow one up on top. That's another 129.
Yeah, but you're still going to the town for 500.
We're going potentially 500. Yeah.
Going for 500 units. I mean, I don't think look, whether the low density opts in and participates or not. I mean, what you're basically saying to the town is you're voting for 500 units, not 400.
We're going for a 40R that encompasses 3 different locations, 2 of which are engaged, and these are the units that we want to put down. If in fact at a later date the other person wants to come in, they'll have to go through a special permit, and we'll decide whether at that time whether or not. But we can't. Doesn't make sense to preclude them right now. Okay.
No, I'm saying you're saying you're targeting 400 units.
Correct.
But you don't design a bylaw on a developer.
You're designing
a bylaw to the town that said we're going to go in with 509 units, right? We think we'll build 400 in the near term. That's the story.
We're doing a 40R overlay. That piece of property is in the overlay. We have had no discussions whether it's even feasible to build it up there. They have never engaged us, but it makes sense to include it in the overlay. If you want to take it out of the overlay,
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying you keep talking about what's a reasonable number, 400. It's going to be 500 units. That's what we're going to town meeting with.
No, it's not, because the other people haven't even expressed an interest in it. Not one.
You're talking about indications of interest right now. I'm talking about a bylaw that's going to be out there forever.
Right. And we need to, if we're going to do a 40R, we need to include it now while we do the 40R.
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying the story is when you go to town is the town will be voting to approve 509 units.
Then if you're not comfortable with it, then which I do not recommend, is take the 129 out.
I'm not suggesting. I just want to make sure we
Technically,
have our
Jerry is
stories
correct.
straight.
I think technically Jerry is correct. We would have to go to town meeting with the 509 and recognizing that as of this moment, there is no plan to develop in that low density area.
Right.
But in the
Right.
future, there could be. And this allows the flexibility for that future endeavor, correct?
Correct. But we need to, if we're going to make that the overlay, the 40R overlay district, we have to include it. We have no intention, nobody's come before us to want to develop it. We want to put it in there. It's still going to have to be it's going to be a special permit to do it. We could say no at that point. It could be less than that many units. It could also be an extension of independent living attached to the nursing home that's up there. It doesn't have to be houses. It could be an extension of that.
I know, but
as well.
I that's fine. You can go to town meeting, but it's still 1,000 cars. Any way you cut it, it's 1,000 cars parked on a postage stamp. And whether they drive them today, tomorrow, we all get back to normal in a year, whatever. It's 1,000 cars.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're going to go in front of the town and say, we're going to put 1,000 cars down here. That's what you're going to tell everybody.
I was hoping they would notice.
Yeah, they're going to notice.
I know. It's
Everybody on
understandable,
Foster
yes.
Street will be there.
What?
Everybody from that side of town will be there. We need a better story than 1,000 cars.
Yep. And we also have to be a little careful about the wording. If they meet the bylaw and meet the design guidelines, then it's not a special permit process. It is a plan review process, but it's not a special permit process. You can still condition or decide to not approve, but it's 40R is not a special permit process. It's a by right as long as you meet the guidelines.
And that's why we decided 40R.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other, Maren, does anyone else have their hands up? This is,
No other hands up at the moment.
okay. So Mark, I get,
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna throw it back to Mark real quick to tell him that for our next meeting, which is when, Maren? March.
It was March 4th, wasn't it?
March 4th is the next planning board meeting. Do you want to schedule the public hearing on this or tentatively schedule it for March 18?
Okay, if you want to skip and go till the 18th, that's fine with me. If you want to keep it off our regular agenda and put it specifically for this, that's fine as well.
Well, there may be additional questions that will need to be answered in between then. I obviously can work with Maren and with Mark to get as many of the answers as possible. I think we have enough information now, Lily, to continue the application. I think it's critical to get this over to DHCD as early as possible, even when it's only about half done, so that they can start reviewing it and providing feedback if they have any questions. But I think we have enough information to get going.
That'd be great. Okay, so we'll continue this till the 18th. What time, Maren?
Well, it's not a public hearing at this point, so we can just schedule it as needed.
Well, we need to start talking about doing it in a public hearing.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, do you want the 18th to be a public hearing?
That's what we're shooting for. Yes.
All right, so you're going to advertise it and put it in everything. So, okay. Correct. All right, so the 18th will be our first official public meeting on this.
It's going to be a real barn burner.
So what I was going to say, if I may, is that because this obviously has a lot of passionate type of topics associated with it, that whoever is doing the outreach for this project try to get something into the Littleton Independent or the Action Unlimited in terms of a press release talking about the points that the chair wishes to really highlight. Because if we can get information out there in parallel to when we're having the first hearing, I think it will go a long way to dispelling some of the questions in advance.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. Can I add to that? Who's got access to the Littleton Moms Facebook page?
Hmm.
That's the best place to go.
You know, or the worst.
Well, at least it's active and it definitely going to get read.
Yeah. I haven't even looked at the independent. Dropped it after 30 years.
And nobody's looking.
There's just nothing there.
Well, I mean, all the social media, obviously, and all the traditional media, we'll say. But the fact that people will not have really heard about this and all the details, it's just going to come as a lot of information. And I think it's important to be able to put the details in it that we want to highlight. That's all.
Maybe we can
Put a poster on the common.
Now the time to say, when do we get this assistant town planner?
Nice.
We get
Why don't
a big poster on the common. That would get everybody going.
No,
Why
Mary,
don't we-
we want you to stand with a sandwich board on the common for weeks at a time. Yeah.
I mean, it could also be an LCTV segment, you know?
Why don't we see if we can get it in at least the Lowell Sun? How's that? Jeff, do you see read the
Full
Lowell
fun,
Sun?
whatever you like.
I've never read the Little Sun.
Yeah, me either.
Okay, all right. Well,
But they have more. They have Littleton news there. Yeah.
okay. We'll see if we can get it. I'll speak with Mara. We'll see
Okay.
what we can do about getting it advertised for the March town meeting.
But maybe we reach out to Cindy's sort of the master of social media.
So I'm telling you, Cindy owns that.
Well, she's still on, I think.
Is Cindy, are you still on?
Yeah, she's still around.
Okay. Well, anyway, maybe we need to.
Anyway.
No, I'm here.
Littleton Moms Facebook page, Cindy.
I have a couple, well, there's two things we can do. We can, I have a liaison with the Wicked Local. I have a contact with the Wicked Local liaison for Littleton. I can reach out to her. And she can certainly put something in the paper regarding the project. And the other thing too, Mark, is I'd really like to present the housing PowerPoint that I put together. We had talked about having me come to the planning board meeting to
Yep.
show that to the board.
Yes, that's a great resource that you have. So,
What
yeah.
about March 4th?
Why don't we do it on the 18th?
That's a lot packed into the 18th.
That's come on.
If all we're gonna have is what?
Mark, you and I can talk about the schedule and figure out what works with Cindy as well.
Okay.
Because we have the retail marijuana sites for March 4th, and we have the application for the IBM site for March 4th.
So that's what I'm saying. Maybe we put it on the 18th. We keep it all on the 18th. But Maren and I will figure it out and get back to Cindy on it.
Okay. And I'll reach out to Margaret Smith. She's my contact with Wicked Local. And I'll just tell her what's going on with these projects and invite her to a couple of the meetings. And that'll be a good way to get some of the word out there as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for your input. And thank you, Cindy, and Mr.
Sure.
Long, and Mark, and Lily, and Anthony.
I'd like to say thank you to the team who made all the changes in the bylaws and in the design guidelines. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to toot my own horn. One of the pictures in the design guidelines is a building that I designed 35 years ago. So in Mashpee Common. So anyway.
Very nice.
You did work at Mashpee? How much did you do over there?
Did a couple of buildings there years and years ago.
I go there quite. It's nice over there.
Yeah.
And great. So, all right. So we're back to our last but not least senior tweaks to the senior residential bylaw. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Lily. And where were we? Okay, so we put this on. You had a couple of questions about it, Anna?
I did. So just real quick, wanted to mention that the next final iteration will include parking for the apartments for the senior apartments that are being added to this bylaw. So, and then I still wanted to get everybody's take as to whether or not capping the number at 64 is the right thing to do. Because I don't really recall where our discussion ended from that. And I wanted to get everyone's thoughts because we have a number right now that might be 64, but the baby boomers are just getting older. And I think that that number needs to be higher. But I wanted to get folks' input. And if Cindy from the Affordable Housing Trust could speak to that as well, that would be great.
There was some rationale for 64. Can you remind me what it was?
That was just the current need for Littleton seniors for affordable, deeply affordable rental units.
Okay.
Really?
As a snapshot from probably a year ago. So
Yeah. And these
I
are
thought we got the input from the Beatles. No? I thought it came from. Isn't it 55 everywhere else? Why are we upping it to 64?
no, not age, number of units.
Number of units.
Oh,
the reason to throw a limit on there is to get through town meeting. What's a number that the town is comfortable with?
Well, if we're currently looking at the number that we just discussed, which was 509, is that correct? So 64 divided by 50, gosh, my fingers can't work right,
8%,
is 12%.
12%.
And so if we're really looking at making a dent for senior housing, especially that which is more affordable, smaller sized, I think the number should be bigger. What does everybody else think?
Yeah.
Anna, can you show me where you're looking at in the proposed bylaw amendment?
Sure. It is under 4D as in dog.
Yeah, it's the second page.
Yep.
D. Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's even saying that it's limiting it in town, right? So that means that any place else in town wouldn't be able to have additional units because we would have maxed them out presumably at the train station.
Actually, you would max them out at the train station only if the developer decided to go for a special permit for senior residential development at the commuter rail station.
Okay.
40R would likely serve a developer better than going for a senior residential development special permit for senior apartments.
Where does it say 64? Oh,
Second page above. Yeah. So the number is to make it palatable to town meeting, or I mean, do we need a number?
Yeah. Well, what? Why is there a number?
That, just given my experience with hearing comments at town meeting, is quote apartments everywhere. Just a suggestion. I'm happy to change it if.
Well, yeah, but I tend to agree with Anna. 64 really enough?
Yep, I'm realizing that through the public hearing process, if you pick a very large number, you can, let's see, you can become less restrictive in a public hearing process, but you can't become more restrictive in a public hearing process.
Well, the way D reads, it just says number of apartments. So you mean number of apartment units, not number
The residential units in a right.
Yeah, and it's not buildings,
it's just units.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's the type of thing where if there was a specific proposal in front of the town, we could amend this. And I'm really skeptical that there'll be any units built under this bylaw. I'm sorry, I'm the like Debbie Downer on this because I don't see the, unless there's a, you know, like a nonprofit or something.
Right. Well, and that's precisely the kind of
Yeah.
entity that would have to come in
Right.
to do that at this.
And if they came, then yeah, we could raise it, you know, based on a specific proposal. But if you think to get the foot in the door, the 64, maybe 65, I don't know why. 64 just seems really like, it seems like it's tied to something specific, but
No, but when we did the 40B, right, they came in, they targeted 200 because that's what made financial sense.
Yes.
To do those apartments. So, I mean, what is the market gonna, what, if you want it to work, like, do you need 200? It should be 200.
Well, we can always go up on it. We don't have to.
I mean, but you gotta go to town meeting again.
Correct. Right. You'd have to have a developer that was willing to wait for a possible town meeting vote plus a special permit.
Why not just cap it around 200, which is consistent with something we've already built?
So yeah, it's 144 apartment units at 15 Great Road plus the
cottages,
whatever.
It was like
cluster single family.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we already have a reference implementation. I mean, do we want to model on that, or do you just want to? 64 seems very arbitrary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Happy to go with another suggestion. Looking at the Shirley Meadows development or senior apartments that just went in at Devon's. That was 58 units in one building. Has anybody driven by there and seen that?
Where is it?
It's right near the Shirley Library. So,
Off of 2A?
yeah, off of Front Street.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it ends up sitting behind the Shirley Middle School.
Yes.
Yeah.
So remember, these particular units that we're talking about in the bylaw are specific to certain areas around the point, around the common, around the Foster Taylor Street area. So I just think I think 200 would be fine. If we want another number, if there's any rationale to it.
I don't know. I mean, it just seems like 64 just sounds arbitrary.
Or maybe you could think of it per project. You know, don't limit the overall number, but limit the number that's in a specific project. So you don't have these giant, you know, warehouses. I don't know. I don't know if we should limit it. I mean, Maren, and Mark, and all of you, do you really think we need to limit it to get it through town meeting?
I think, given that and the fact that we're doing Foster Street, you're going to overwhelm people with how much
It's going to be crazy.
housing is going to go on.
So maybe it should be 64 for now.
Maybe we should leave it at 64 because let's err on the side of caution like we did at Foster Street and try to pick
And
up.
if someone says why, you can say because that's the identified need, you know, that we've, you know, verified.
Current identified need, but
Right.
we're all getting older.
But
Yeah. So, and the other part of it is I was thinking of apartment blocks, it's usually like 32 or 48 or 64 units.
okay,
Sort of familiar with, but
we talked about it now, so yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm good.
We can still discuss it on the 18th when we're dealing with Foster Street as well, too.
No,
you can become less restrictive in the public hearing process if necessary, if you feel.
Okay. Anything else? We're done for this evening, the meeting that I thought was going to take an hour and a half.
Oh, come on, these are big topics.
They are.
They are.
Marijuana thing is so
Complex.
Marijuana, 40R. I
I
mean,
know.
this with 40R. Come on, dude.
Well, it's different. I've seen the 40R thing for 2 years now, so.
Thought I heard Chair Napoli say that she had some comments on this.
And there are 2 hands up, yes.
All right, so,
Gotta run from, I'll be back in a second.
okay,
Am I still muted? Am I not muted?
No,
Hi.
you're good.
All right, I'm good. Yeah, I did have a couple questions on this. So, under the senior apartment proposed amendment, paragraph B2, the senior apartments are permitted within 10-minute walking distance. The common village district, the point. Do you think you should put 10 minutes or should you just put so many feet? I just thought 10 minutes was a little awkward for wording.
That's a good point.
I mean, is
About-
someone going to time it? And it depends on how fast you walk.
How about, so that would pretty much come out to about 12 to 1,500 feet.
I just think it would make more sense to put it in feet instead of walking minutes.
why do we even need to put anything? Why don't we just put the areas and leave it at that?
Right.
You gotta draw the zones, right?
Well, the point, that's the zone, the common area, the whole common area, the train station. Why do you need to put how far you can, just how about in close proximity to the point, the common, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to put a number or how long it takes to get there. Everybody walks at a different
Well, it
pace.
takes about 10 minutes, a slow walk, to go about 1,000, 1,500 feet.
So that means you could be up on Adams Street if you wanted to be near the common area. Is that what you really want, or you want to leave it in the common area?
It's walking distance to the common, I think, is the intent.
So it should be the common area. We don't want it up. We don't want it right smack in the middle of Goldsmith Street up there, do we? We want it in the common area,
Sounds good.
contiguous to the common area.
Okay.
Within those current districts.
Right.
Okay,
Take the walking distance away from it.
sounds good.
Then it
Okay.
becomes an interpretation. Okay.
Mark, can you explain to me the difference between a senior apartment and an independent living unit?
You don't want to ask me.
That's why we are updating
don't
the
have-
definition.
That discussion.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is because independent living units are an exception to Article 19. So it was a little bit confused the way it was worded. So our independent independent living units subject to the affordability component with respect to the range of AMI and the number of affordable units, or is it exempt from that?
It's subject to it.
Independent living units have to have services that go with them. And that's where we're kind of working on drawing the line, what services. I'm not talking about mowing somebody's lawn. I'm talking about
Food, no food.
inside the apartment services, food, the availability to have somebody come in and check on you.
A radically different financial model than what we're talking about.
Okay,
Well,
so it is an exception to the senior residential, to this bylaw change. It's remaining an exemption from that.
because the apartments.
I don't think that's worded quite right. The problem is that the document that you're looking at is worded in the format of a warrant article. So you
Okay.
don't truly get the whole picture. At the end of the article, there's a new modification to the definition of independent living units.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that was kind of inconsequential to the actual, the
So the-
exemption that already exists. Like the definition itself doesn't matter because the exemption is still in place.
Okay.
Where we see the
Regardless.
exceptions-
Right, so further, a little before that, in the article, it clarifies that the senior residential development, the affordability requirements of the senior residential development apply, not the 10% that's required in the inclusionary housing zoning bylaw. It's the 50% that can be reduced to 25%.
Right. But it says, exceptions to the article are independent living units or an assisted living residence in a senior residential development.
I thought we took those out. So that,
Correct.
yeah, I thought we actually removed
So
that.
that's removed somewhere. Okay. I just didn't pick up on that.
Well, I just want to confirm it. Maren, do you recall, was that particular item
There we go.
removed?
All right, thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, it's
Thanks, Jerry.
Hi.
Bye, Jerry. I just didn't see where it was.
Yeah, so under C, under number 2,
Yeah.
where it's amending that 173-204C,
Okay.
which is where the exemption was, right?
Yeah.
So now that C only talks about the rehabilitation, which
Oh, okay. Perfect. All right. Good. I missed that.
is gone. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm glad
Alright,
you
good.
brought that up because that is very important. We don't want to create the same problem.
Right. All right, good. Thank you for clarifying that. And I just have one other ask or suggestion, which is totally, it's kind of a little off base, but on section 173-205 development requirements, this is under the existing bylaw with the 10% affordability. Development subject to that article will have at least 10% of the dwelling units be affordable. Can we increase that 10%? Would the board consider that? It just seems so low.
Yep, I thought we were higher than that. I thought we were looking at least 25%.
But this isn't with respect, this is just regular development requirements. This
Right,
isn't-
this is the inclusionary zoning bylaw.
Yeah,
Is required at 10%.
yeah, this isn't subject to the seniors. This is just the inclusionary bylaw in itself.
It
Right,
says
that,
at least 10%.
Oh,
So
it does say,
currently reads,
yeah,
Yeah, at least 10%.
right. Well, yeah, I was just wondering if you ever considered making that a little bit more specific, like a higher number. I mean, at least 10%, then people would be like, oh, I'm going to settle for the 10%. Whereas if it was a little bit higher,
Mhm.
it might increase affordability. I don't know if you've ever had those discussions. I just thought I'd mention it.
We fight with developers all the time over it.
I know.
Yeah, I understand the question. The board has not discussed updating the inclusionary zoning bylaw to more than 10%.
Okay. All right, I just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you.
That
Thank
would be a topic for future discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but thank you for clarifying my other questions about the recent bylaw changes. I appreciate it.
you. Mara, did
Proposed
someone else
bylaw
have their hand
changes.
up?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mara, did
Thanks.
someone else have their hand up?
Yes, Mark Grombacher.
Hi, Mark Rambacher, Littleton, 205 Hartwell. A couple questions. I also agreed with Cindy that the restriction on the 10-minute walking is kind of odd. And it would be better just to say within the area rather than put in a distance, because you're going to get into weird things with some of those areas where like parts of Goldsmith Street might not be accessible in that distance, except as the crow flies. So if you just keep it that would be better. Under the independent living units, I had a question. If there's a reason you want to restrict them to seniors as opposed to others that might need an independent living unit, like, blind individuals, autistic, or someone that would be in some kind of an independent living unit, potentially like that, where it says principally by people over 55. Is that really what we want that requirement to be?
It's a good point. You have a lot of different, you have autistic adults, you have like blind people, people with other disabilities? Should we include over 55, or how else would you?
Well, the way I interpret that wording is the planning board has the authority to either do an age restriction or not include an age restriction, and as part of an application. Just because it's designed for residents 55 or over doesn't preclude others who need a similar living situation from living there. I guess if there is some better standard wording, I'd be happy to use that instead, but this is what I was familiar with.
Principally gives you some wiggle room in there.
Mhm.
Well, under 173, 145 of the existing SRD, it does say residential service. So purpose is to provide for a variety of housing types, settings, and residential services to meet the needs of people as they age and people with disabilities. So that's what that says. So to the degree that we want to add language, we could consider and people with disabilities.
I think that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think that would cover it. Thank you.
Anything
That's
else,
all I
Mark?
had. Nope, that's all I had. Thank you.
That's
Thank
a
you.
really good comment. I know that, and on my time at the Board of Appeals, we approved a couple things where people were actually building their own group homes for their adult children who needed, constant supervision, and they had to have the means to do that, but that was their only option. So I think it's good to think about that.
Yep. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, anything else, Mark? Is that? anyone
That's
else
all
have
the hands that were raised.
Okay, well, it's 9:00, the witching hour. Does anyone want to make a motion that we adjourn to our March 4th meeting?
I so move.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Anna,
Yes.
Anthony?
I don't get the vote, Mark.
And I'm a yes. All right.
I just
thank
get to enjoy, Mark. I just get to enjoy this.
But your
Yeah.
face says yes, Anthony.
That's my face does say yes.
you. Yes. Sorry it was so long-winded, and we will get together and talk about the marijuana thing so that we have a better handle on it by the time we're in public.
Yeah, I already shot Maren an email, so we'll coordinate something the beginning of the week and
Okay.
And Jeff,
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you would like to participate instead of me. I'm more than happy to have you do that.
Anna, go for it.
All right, Anna, get your tie-dye shirt out and we'll all get together. Thank you all.
All right, thanks.
have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah.
See ya.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.